So hello YouTube family and friends. This is Rev It Up, Mustang Fanatic Productions. It's Saturday, I believe it's April 17th, I want to say, or 18th, one of those. And Elizabeth, she's still covered up. Nothing to do. I got a little '03 Pontiac GT that I'm fixing up. It was a donor car, so it runs and drives. So we did some work to that. We flushed the radiator system out, coolant. We did an oil change. We got the passengers' windows working and the power locks working. We fixed that, and it had a security code on it, and the security code was just that the car hadn't been started in a long time and the battery died. And so to fix that security code, all you do is when you get a new battery, you turn the key to the on position and let it sit for 10 minutes, and then come back, turn it to the off position, let it sit for about 5 seconds, and then it should start, and it should turn that engine light off. If it doesn't, the security light off. If it doesn't, then you turn it again to the on position for another 10 minutes, and then come back and set it to let it sit 5 seconds, and then crank it up, and the security light should go off then. But we got a '07 Toyota Camry. We're doing front brakes and rotors, and we're doing the rear brakes. Okay, and so this is what the video is going to be on today, is doing the rotors, the brakes on the front, and just the brakes in the rear. So we're going to get everything jacked up, get our jack stands under there, get our safety goggles on, and chalk the wheels, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with too many particulars, but brakes are basically essentially the same on any vehicle, with the exception of the retaining clips, how it go in and out, and the rear brakes, whether you're going to use a C-clamp to push the calipers back in, or if you need the rotary type, because on Fords, the rear brakes, you got the rotary types, but the front's basically the same. So I got my 1.5 ton jacks with both tires up in the air. I like to do one side then the other, and then I'll jack up the rear and do that. So the only thing I'm going to do is show you the front brake rotors and brakes, and then when I get to the back, show you how to do the rear on one side. I'm not going to do all four sides, show you, because it's just repetitious. But since this is a car's lightweight, I use my lightweight jacks. But if it was a truck, I have my 3-ton jacks, where there's my 3-ton jack right there. That's a 3.5-ton jack. And that's my Daytona jacks. Got a 29-inch lift. I like to, for safety, I keep it on the side that I'm working on. I keep just a little bit of pressure on it, even though the jack stands are down there. And I got my impact gun, and we're gonna just blow these tires right off, and we'll show you I don't like to just be a parts changer, but I like to diagnose why part failed, and when I tell the owner of the vehicle why it failed. So I like to diagnose things. I just don't like to replace. I like to find out why a part failed earlier than it should have, and you can recognize all the defects and stuff that goes wrong when these brakes fail, and people need to have brakes and rotors done. So we get into the particulars of that. So I keep all my tools for my brake works. You can see brakes over in there, and my breaker bar. I got my torque wrench. There's my C-clamps and ratchet wrenches, and there's the tools that I use to do the brake job with. And so we're going to begin, and I'll get back to you and I'll show you the brakes. Okay, so as you can see a little bit of rust built up around here. It's not too bad, but you see the brake rotor, you can see these grooves in here. I wouldn't even bother resurfacing these. You can take these off and take them to a shop, and they will cut them for you. And but it's better to just go ahead and buy it, because they'll charge you like 20 bucks to do this, and the rotors are like $69 a piece. You're better off just getting brand new rotors than having them cut, because sometimes the machine doesn't cut it proper, and when you go to hit the brakes, it's oblong, and you'll get that shaking in there. So right now I can see that these brakes have went down to the metal, but there's no grinding. But this was probably some time ago, and they just put new brake pads on, and they keep changing the brakes because these rotors are trash. Now, to get the rotors off, you got these two bolts here that hold the caliper in, and those are usually about 10 millimeter, probably something like that. And then to get the caliper off, there's two bolts, one up here and one down the bottom, and those are about, I think, about 14 millimeter bolts. Okay, and then we pull the brakes out and everything. I'll show you all that. And then if this rotor doesn't want to come off, you find a bolt, and there's a thread pattern there. See if you can get a thread bolt threaded in there, and turn the ratchet in, and it'll pop it loose. But mostly, sometimes the front will just come right off. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so on the front brake caliper, the brake caliper bolts, it spins when I want to take it loose. So you can take a 15 or 16 millimeter bolt and put it right there and hold it while you turn. Now on Toyotas, they have these brake pads, clip holders, and they're in the top and they're in the bottom, and they hold the brake pads in place. And to get that out, if you notice, I don't know if you can see it, I'm gonna try and spot it right on where that flashlight hole is. Let me see if I get my hand out of the way. Well, there's a little hole that pin goes into, and you put the pin in there, and the same thing down here on the bottom. They're like little tabs that you just squeeze in and take out. I'll show it to you more when I get it out, but it's nothing hard to do. So that was no big deal on that. So now your caliper holders are 17 millimeter. These are 14 millimeters. These are 17 millimeters. So I'm going to get my wrench, and I'm going to crack that loose to get the caliper off. So we use a breaker bar, ratchet style, to break this, and I like the adjustable angle on the head, so I have clearance so I can miss the fender when I'm breaking loose those bolts. So you break them loose both at the same time, and then you can just back them out by hand, which I'm doing. Okay, so I got them out by hand, and I'll just keep them together, and then the caliper just comes right off. So now I'll get into some other things here. So now I got to find a bungee cord so I can hang the brake caliper out of the way while I work on getting the disc off. Okay, on Toyotas, it's good to have an assortment of different type threads. I told you we may need to put threads into here to get this rotor to come off. So what I did, I used a screwdriver, and I have a harmonic balancer puller or steering wheel puller with different sizes of threads assortments. So I didn't need to use the puller, but when you hold this screwdriver and you twist, see how that popped right off? I literally didn't even need this one. All I needed was one. That was it. So always have an assortment of bolts that you can use in order to do a brake job on a Toyota Camry, or many standard brakes are like that. And then we just back the bolt back out of there. I don't like taking a hammer, even though I'm not going to reuse this. It's just too much work to beat and bang, and then you get brake dust all in your face, and then the rotor just simply comes right off. And you can see how horrible this rotor is. You can see the deep scars and scratches that are in it, and we'll show you it from behind. See, I wouldn't even bother having those turned. Those grooves are too deep. And then you can see the rust that's down in there. And that's where you usually run into brake problems at, right there. So now what you want to do, we're going to clean this up, get the rust off it, and you can put some either some brake lube on there or some anti-seize. Just put a little bit up on there so this doesn't rust up anymore. You can take sandpaper and or emery cloth, or if you have an angle grinder or anything you need just to get the rust off that and off around the hub here, so this doesn't have trouble going back on and off. All right, so we'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so you can see I cleaned up the spindle a little bit here, and all I did is attach the wire wheel to my drill and just basically go around and get the rust off. That's all. And then you can just shave around the bolt to have the thread pattern cleaned off, and that's all to it. And then you can apply a little bit anti-seize on there so this doesn't be hard to get off the next time. So now what we have to do is we're going to get the new rotor. Okay, the new rotor is here in the box, and it's going to come with, and I want to change my gloves because I got grease on here, so I want to put new gloves on. But let me see if this thing's got that. This got plastic over it, so it may not have the grease on it, the oil on it, to stop it from rusting through shipping. So let's see. No, there's no oil on it, so they kept it wrapped. Let's check the back. No, there's no oil on it at all. No, completely dry. So that's clean. So if it comes with grease on it, you will take some brake cleaner and you'll put this hub on backwards, spray the brake cleaner and dry it off, then put it back on forward, spray the brake cleaner and clean it up. Since there's no oil on it, we're good to go. So the back of the hub here is nice and clean, so we're going to slide that on here, and this lip right here races right on top of here, and so we don't want that to seize up. That's why we kind of clean that up too. So let me get my anti-seize and just going to put a little bit on there. That's all. So you don't need to go crazy with the anti-seize. Just because this stuff is real greasy and it spreads fast. So just put a dab in there. Put a little dab around here. And that'll keep that from rusting. And it'll keep it from seizing up if this has to have rotors on it in the future. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead. I got grease on my gloves, so I want to go ahead and change gloves. Okay, so what I did, I put the new rotor on, and it's all the way on to where the backing plate is, and I took one of the lug nuts to hold the rotor in place. So now what I got to do is since this doesn't come with new hardware, we're going to clean up this hardware in here, and we're going to put the new brake pads on out here so it's easier to do. So we go to our workbench, okay, and we'll get this old rotor out of the way. Okay, now I like to take this box right here and I make my chemical wash bay right here. Okay, so I'll turn the rotor up. Now there's two things that you want to be concerned with when you're doing with a rotor. This is the brake caliper sliding pins, and this is what makes a lot of brakes fail. See how stiff that is? Look how stiff that is. Those pins are supposed to slide out. See how it's moving now? It's real tough. And so that's why brakes fail. So I'm gonna have to take these pins off and clean them out. So the way you get them out is you just simply push back on that rubber boot, and the rubber boot comes off. See how the rubber boot comes off? And you slide them out. Okay, now be mindful what you do, because sometimes there'll be a rubber O-ring on one of them, so you want to make sure you keep them separated and do them one at a time. But these push pins, these caliber sliding pins, are supposed to slide in and out just like that there, nice and easy. So what you want to do is you want to just clean this up. There's no rust on it. If there was rust on it, I would take my wire wheel and I would clean it right up. So since there's no rust on it, the only thing we got to do is just clean her off and put some brake lube on it. So this is what brake lube looks like right there. Or you can get that one right there, disc brake quiet. And I just put a little bit on the shaft. Now you see that black seal right there? That's what I was talking about. That's an O-ring, that black piece right there. And so we just slide this back in like so, and you want to twist it in like that, and then you want this rubber bushing to pop right back into place. It popped right back into place. Okay, see how that's on there? And so now that moves in and out nice and free. See the difference? Nice and free. And I can barely move this one. So now we're going to do the same thing to this one. We're going to take this one out just by twisting. And this one is very tight. It's hard to do stuff with one hand. So you just twist it and it comes out. We'll get it out. You can see the difference on this push pin, this sliding pin. It looks like it's almost a little rusted. So let's see if I can clean this up right here. If I can't get it shiny, I'll take it over to my bench over there and put it in my vice grips, and we'll just take the wire wheel and clean it right up. So I got the sliding pin in my vice grip, and all I'm going to do is just take my wire wheel and just clean it up. That's all. Try and get the rust off it. I mean, you don't want to put grooves in it, but you want to just get it nice and clean. You get the idea. So that's all you have to do to that. So we got this looking a bit more shiny. So now we're going to put some brake lube on here, and then we're going to put it back in there, and we'll see if she slides nice and easy. Okay, so we got it nice and lubed up, so we're going to put it back in place. And remember, you just twist her in and see how easy she goes in. Now we're going to push it all the way down, and this is going to pop back right over top of that groove right there. We're going to push it in. Here, click. Now, see how easier this is now? Nice and easy. And that's why you have a lot of brake failure. These brake caliber sliding pins, they get rust on it and they get locked up. So that's one thing. Now the next thing we're going to do is we want to take some brake parts cleaner, and we want to spray these retaining clips here. The brake caliper goes in, and these are clips that keep them in. Usually if you get a good set of brakes, these springs will come in. You just pop them out, pop them back in, and just make sure that the angles, these come out. If you have them facing in, it's going to make contact with the rotor. You don't want that. So they got them on the tops and they got them on the bottoms here. So I'm going to spray some brake lube in here. Take a wire brush. And we're going to just scrub in here and get it all cleaned up. And then we're going to take some brake lube and we're going to just put it on the contacts where the brake pads are going to make contact with. So here's our brakes part cleaner, and we're just going to spray in here. This is my little chemical tank. Going to spray it up real good. And then you just want to take a wire brush and just clean it. Get all the oil and stuff off of it. That's all you want to do. See it coming clean? Oh yeah, that's looking nice. And that gets all the rust, the oil and dirt off of here. So the brake pads will be able to slide nice and easy. So you want to do that to both sides. Oh, that looks like it's brand new there. That looks like it's brand new. So when you don't have new brake hardware kits, this is how you clean them. Get a little steel brush, some brake clean, spray it, use this box as your parts cleaner, chemical parts cleaner, so you don't get dirt and stuff all over everywhere. And this should clean up pretty good here. I mean, it's not a show car, and you want to get them pretty clean. Sorry, I had a phone call. That was my wife. I had to answer that. So we're getting this nice and clean, and this is shiny. It's looking pretty good. Okay, so I'm not going to waste any video showing you how to do the other one, because it's basically the same thing. You just spray on and you brush it off, and then you want to dry them. That's all. Okay, so we'll get back to you when we got to push the brake caliper in and put this stuff back together. Yep. Okay, we got the brake pads in there. Now I'll show you how to put those separator pins on. But next is, yeah, the rotor here. I mean the brake caliper. We got to take and push the piston all the way back in so this can fit over the brakes. And you all know the drill. Yeah, you use the C-clamp over here, and you got to put your old brake pad inside here, and then you just twist until the piston goes all the way back in. Okay, so the old brake pad is right there. We got the C-clamp on the back of the piston, and we just want to twist this piston in, and you'll see that piston going back into the brake, the piston chamber. Now you want to do this nice and easy. Take your time, so because you're taking brake fluid that's in the lines and pushing it back in the reservoir, so you don't want the reservoir to overrun, or you don't want it to get air pockets in there. So just twist it in nice and slow until it gets all the way in to where it can't move anymore. There's no rush. Just take your time. Think of something nice, like a nice good old stimulus check. So you get the idea. When the brake pad, when the piston gets all the way back in there, it'll hit the back of the stop, and then we can put the caliper back on. Alright guys, you ain't gonna be able to see this too good, but I showed you how it went. This has to face downward like that, but you want to make sure those little air ears go into the hole on that brake, and you want to get it on the other side, and you're going to have to hold the brakes together, because this is called a pin separator, and it will make the brakes slide out. So you got to keep a little bit of pressure on it. And